Hey, I'm Ton Vin, and this is Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. June was a busy month for the Seattle restaurant scene. Today, we're bringing it all down for you with Seattle Eats producer Clare McGrane. First, I'll tell you why a big-name Seattle chef is overhauling her high-end steakhouse. It's a window into the mood of Seattle diners. Then, we say goodbye to a beloved 50-year-old dive in the U District and spell out why dive bars are disappearing in the city. But it's not all doom and gloom. The city also welcomed 2 new rooftop bars, perfect for the summer weather. I'll tell you what to order and explain how these new spots could fit in. Let's get to it. Hey, Seattle Eaters. I'm in the studio with my producer, Clare McGrane. Hey, Claire.
Hello, Ton. Always nice to be behind the microphone.
It's been a while. I hear you booting me out of my host seat. You're taking over this episode?
Yeah, well, you reported one of the big stories we're talking about today, so I am going to ask you about it. Take over for a hot second. Is that okay?
That's fine. Where do we begin?
So you broke some news this month about Renee Erickson, who I know she's a local chef, restaurateur. She has kind of a restaurant network called Sea Creatures Restaurants, and they closed 4 locations. So I want to talk about the closures and what's going on there in a second. But first, can you explain who Renee Erickson is and why she's a big deal around here?
Yeah. Renee Erickson is a James Beard Award-winning chef. But not just that, I would say she's one of the most influential culinary figures in Seattle the past 25 years. I mean, prior to her, the common stereotype of Seattle was that we're known for Asian fusion. It's wrong, but that's a perception that people have. And Erickson helped introduce this sort of Francophile, Mediterranean, New American-ish cuisine and aesthetic. I would call her decor French country, kind of rustic, but elegant. And you could say that about her menu, simple, but elegant. And she hit a home run with the Walton Carpenter. And I think that really helped her. And her name became synonymous with this type of cuisine in Seattle.
Walton the Carpenter is a oyster bar, is that right?
It's an oyster bar, kind of New American, kind of French inspired in Ballard. And even to this day, I would say that is one of the most popular restaurants for high-end dining in Seattle. It is one of the busiest restaurants in Seattle. And it is easily her best and I would say busiest restaurants for Renee Erickson.
So she has quite a lot of restaurants, right? And there are 4 that are closing as part of this kind of change they're making. What is her company doing?
Not all 4 are closing. 2 are closing and the other 2 are pivoting is the best way to put it. She is closing 2 of her donut shops, General Purpose in Laurelhurst and Capitol Hill. But the big news is what she's doing to her bar and restaurant, Bateu and Boat Bar on Capitol Hill. Bateu is a high-end steakhouse. It is the Price's Renee Erickson's project. It's a restaurant where the tasting menu is $215 for the tasting menu.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Boat Bar is right next door, is under the same roof, but it's really considered another concept. It's more a French oyster bar. So under the new reconfiguration, they're going to make this into pretty much one bar restaurant where Boat Bar will no longer be a French oyster bar. It'll be a place to get drinks, maybe a waiting area. At least that's the plan for now, for seating at her steakhouse. And the steakhouse itself, you will no longer see the $215 tasting menu. You will see lower price points items. What management has told me is, ever since the pandemic, Bateu has never really recovered, and it's not the right time to do a high-end dining place on Capitol Hill. I would push back against that a little bit, Clara, because I would say even before the pandemic, it was out of tune, out of rhythm with the rest of Capitol Hill. If you ask anyone, hey, what is the best thing that you've eaten at Bateu? They all say it's the burger. And that's actually not a good thing when you're a high-end restaurant because they have dishes that are close to $100. You do not want people to come there eating a $20 burger. So that tells me that they're really out of tune and out of touch with their market. So it's not a surprise to me that they're shutting down It will still be a steakhouse, but more casual, more easy price points. And yes, the burger is staying on the menu. That will not go away.
They know a good thing when they have it.
Exactly.
So you're saying that they're maybe out of tune with the market on Capitol Hill. But I would say just like my observation is that dining around Seattle is already so expensive that like I'm not really going to be spending my money going out to super high-end places often, even if I have that kind of money, right? So is there a place in Seattle where it might make sense, or is it just like the city is shifted away from that?
If you ask real estate agents, they will say for high-end dining, South Lake Union is where it's at. Maybe Ballard, but definitely South Lake Union. And in fact, we have a high-end tapas place that just opened on South Lake Union, La Loba. So there is still room for high-end dining in Seattle, but where Bateu is really a bar-hopping neighborhood. It's around the Pike and Pine corridor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't match up with the demographics there.
So basically they're going to close down for a while, kind of reconfigure stuff so that they have a lower price point, a more casual offering. Have they said like how they're going to do this? Like how do you make something less expensive?
Right. The thing is, they still like the concept. They're kind of hush-hush on the details, but they did confirm to me it will still be a steakhouse. There will still be high-end cuts. How Bateu is set up is like any fine dining restaurant. When you have a table for 4, you wait till everyone finishes their entree or their dish before you move on to the next course. So therefore, when you dine there, we're talking about a 3-hour dinner, which is very European, but it's very un-Seattle, very un-Capitol Hill.
Yeah, so they'll have more tables being sat. They'll be going through kind of parties faster, and that will help them run it more efficiently.
Yes, they're going to turn the table much faster than what they have in the past because it will be more informal. That is the game plan. I don't know if this is going to work, Claire, but it certainly makes a lot more sense than a high-end fancy dining restaurant that it is now. Mm-hmm. Okay, on to the next closure. It's a College Inn pub in the U District, and it closed on June 15th. It's been around since the 70s. I've never been there, but I know you like this spot, Clara. What was it like? Fill me in.
Yeah, for sure. This is somewhere I went as a student at UW, and now that I work on the Ave, I've been working on the Ave despite kind of working from home for the last 6 years or so. So I've gone there a lot, and it's like hidden. Like you come down the street, there's this huge old kind of Tudor style building with restaurants on the ground floor. To get to the College Inn pub, you have to go down a side kind of alley through a nondescript door, let's say, down a flight of stairs, and then you're in this like almost kind of cozy underground tavern feeling space. The lighting is always really low. There's no windows, and it is not like one big room. The bar is kind of in the middle, and then there's all these little carved out pieces all around. So it feels very cozy. I think I used that word already. But
really? It feels cozy?
Yeah.
Sounds like an obstacle course. That's what that sounds like. That's not an
little bit.
That's an obstacle course.
It feels very different from a lot of places in Seattle, especially more places in newer buildings where it's like walls of windows and a big open kind of industrial space with kind of benches. This is much more old school, like, my husband, when we were both at UW, he would go there and run into his astronomy professors having a beer at the end of the day. It feels like a place out of time, which I think makes it very cool and unique, but I think also is part of the reason why they've been struggling.
Yeah, because I hate to say this, dive bars, the math for a dive bar does not work in Seattle anymore. It's too expensive to pull off. But what makes dive bar, especially this one, unique is there's very few dive bars at a university where college professors and students hang out. It's usually either or, but not both. This is very unique. And so that's what makes me sad. And we're losing dive bars left and right.
Yeah, and I think it really says something that the College Inn pub, which has been around since the 70s, like you said, they almost closed down in 2020 during lockdown. It was bought by someone who actually used to work there and who wrote a lot of her grad thesis there. Her name is Jen Gonier Donahue. I hope I'm saying that right, Jen. I'm so sorry if I didn't. And she basically took it over with a small team. They figured out how to keep it going for a while. And she comes from the nonprofit world, and she says in her letter to the patrons when they were closing, she said her husband always called the college in like her own one-person nonprofit that she was trying to keep going. Like it's a passion project. So they've been looking for someone for the last couple of years to buy the space and take it over and run it in a more long-term way. And they've just gotten no offers. And it's because of all the things that make it so unique and in my mind cozy, in your mind maybe a little weird. But the fact that it isn't on the ground level, so it has no street presence. The fact that it's not accessible. You have to go down these kind of steep stairs. And, it is literally and metaphorically underground. It's not one of the cool spots on the Ave that all the folks out partying are going to go to. It serves a different need. The thing that it has done is really be a community space, right? And like they've had weddings there, they've had memorial services there, people meet their partner there, it hosts study groups, it hosts often happy hours in our office. And so it is that kind of third space that is so hard to find where you can just sit down, take up a whole booth, get a couple drinks. There's not people coming by every so often to be like, hey, please buy more things. They don't have table service really. So it was just a comfortable place to be in. And I think that's a big loss.
Yeah. It's funny. You said the owner sort of made fun of it and called it like, this is a non-profit. I would say most dive bars and even a lot of restaurants are non-profit, whether they realize it or not. Some find out the hard way. I mean, it's sad to lose a community place, but we also have some good news. June was also a big month for new openings, including 2 rooftop bars. We'll take a quick break, and we'll talk about those when we get back. Stick around. Okay, we're back. Claire, let's talk about 2 new rooftop bars in Seattle. I would say it's 1.5 rooftop bar. But we'll get to that.
Interesting.
We'll get to that soon enough. The first is called Firn. It's spelled Firn. And they claim to be the first rooftop bar in Pioneer Square, which isn't saying much, but okay. Claire, Firn is already very popular with Sounders fans and Mariners fans. My advice to anyone who wants to go to this rooftop bar, it's crowded already because it's summer, but you do not want to be around here when there's a game. So what you should do is check the newspaper, maybe the Seattle Times sports section, and see if there is a home game. And if the Seahawks are playing or the Mariners is playing, you do not want to be anywhere near this place.
Or if there's a World Cup game happening, because those have already started, the Club World Cup games.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say I find a time to go where there are no home games, which is a challenge when the Mariners are playing because those guys play like every freaking day.
It feels like it.
As I know, because I take the light rail to and from the office. So if I manage to get it when it's not full of like people in jerseys, what is the vibe like there?
I would say there's a disconnect because when you go on game days, you see people in Mariners jerseys and the Sounders jerseys, and it feels like a sports bar. But I don't think that's what they intended. In fact, I know that's not what they intended because the cocktail menu is north of $20, mostly. Not a sports bar vibe. You can't get nachos or anything up there. I think they're looking more of the high-end crowd of Pioneer Square. But it's still too early to say what kind of crowd they attract. You know what? When you have a rooftop bar, you've won. You have something that most people don't have. You have a rooftop bar. The selling point is the view, and that's it. Just don't mess up the drinks, and you're fine. You don't need to make fancy craft cocktails. In fact, you shouldn't be making boozy drinks like Manhattan because it's just burning hot up there. You want fruit drinks. You want, lighter drinks. So that's the big lesson people have learned, and that's what this rooftop bar, Firn, has picked up. So when you go to Firn, a lot of icy drinks, shaved ice drinks, a lot of slushies, and that's really is the way to go. I would say if there's anything you need to learn about rooftop bar, it's not where you go to dine.
It's a drinking spot.
It's a drinking spot. Most rooftop bar don't even have a kitchen. It's a very limited menu. In fact, I'm going to break it down for you. Rooftop bars have two things on the menu: a charcuterie and cheese plate for meat eaters and a hummus platter for the vegetarians. And that's it.
I have had the hummus platter at the Mountaineering Club
Right.
in the University District, which is also a rooftop bar. Feeling a little called out, Ton.
And see, and that's why you can poo-poo and say, oh my God, they're not being very original, they're not taking risks. But rooftop bars don't have kitchens usually. And all they need to do is just have something for you to fortify you between drinks. That's it. That's their only goal. No one's trying to win a Michelin star here with a rooftop bar dining. So I think they hit it right on the mark. Drinks, slushies, shaved ice drinks. Menu, hummus platter, charcuterie plate. Boom. That's it.
You're going to open one yourself now. That was a solid
Yeah.
business plan. Just find a view. So what do you recommend at Firn? Are there any drinks that you particularly liked there?
Oh, not only Firn, but every rooftop bar. An Aperol Spritz, or you can go tropical drink, but you want to avoid what's called the brown and stir drinks. You know, the Manhattans, the old fashions, because those are too boozy and they will not go down easy under the hot sun on that rooftop. Trust me on this. Also, my advice, if it's packed on the rooftop bar, I would order a white wine or bubbles, you know, something that bartender, Claire, can just pour out of a bottle or pour down on a tap instead of something that's labor intensive like making a craft cocktail. Trust me, it will save you so much time and your bartender and your server will thank you.
Now, there's a second rooftop bar, which I think, as you alluded to, we're going to have some discussion about if it counts as a rooftop bar. So tell me about this one.
Yeah, the second rooftop bar is in the heart of Capitol Hill, I would say, around the Pike Pine corridor. It's called Cantina del Sol. Is it a rooftop bar if it's mostly covered by a roof? What do you think?
Do they have a view?
They do not have a view. They have peekaboo views of kind of, sort of downtown, because most of the seats are beneath like a steel, corrugated steel roof. So you really don't have a view. I would say it's more like a bar that's on the second floor of a building. You don't feel like you're al fresco. You don't feel like you're outside. So I would say we have 1.5 rooftop bar. But I would say, we talked about food. They do, one of the few rooftop bars I know where there is a hot food menu. And the reason why they will pull this off is because they have a trailer on the rooftop, and that is their kitchen. It's basically a simple menu of tacos, quesadillas, burrito. Again, they're not going to win a Michelin star. It's just enough to fortify you between tequila shots.
You know, I'm looking at a picture of the space now. And yeah, you're right. It feels quite inside. You know what it feels like with the kind of roof and the loose walls, but with lots of windows? It feels like quote unquote outside dining places that opened during the pandemic where it was only nominally outside, you know?
Right. I don't know. I lose sleep over stuff like this. It's a metaphysical question, right? Is it a rooftop bar or not? I say no. It's a cool place to hang out. I'm just saying it's not a rooftop bar. But I will say, I will give the owner credit. It's Travis Rosenthal. He's a restaurateur. He owns Rumba and Inside Passage nearby. He did a great job of designing this space with what he has. We talked earlier about how Renee Erickson's Bateu restaurant, high-end dining in Capitol Hill, was out of sync with their demographic. Travis, I think, is right on point with his demographic on this. It's meant for the younger crowd. The drink menu is basically margaritas and slushies. It's like a high-volume bar made to move. And hey, if you're hungry, guess what? It's tacos and burritos. It's very approachable. Everything is very familiar.
You know, Ton, it just seems really interesting to me that we talked earlier about a bar, old historic bar, the College Inn Pub in the U District, that is literally underground, and it just closed. And the two new bars we're talking about are on the rooftop. They're like outside, they're bright. And I wonder if this is kind of a trend of rooftop bars being a new thing in Seattle.
Well, the problem is real estate. There's not a lot of places or even buildings where you can just turn something into a rooftop bar. I don't think you're going to see a lot of rooftop bars unless there's a new development. just because of the way zoning works here in Seattle. But I will say it has a lot of credibility because drinks, high profit margins. Can you imagine, Claire, if me and you sit at a bar, a rooftop bar, and we order a bottle of wine, that is a high profit item. And another theme that we don't talk about enough is pre-batch cocktails or like slushies. Yeah. And the reason why they work is because you don't need a lot of talent. I know a lot of bartenders are going to be upset with that, but pretty much I could pre-batch or I could put something on tap, and all your job, Claire, if you work for me, is you just need to pour it. You just make sure it's to the rim and to serve it to the customers, and you're done.
I have to say, I had a really delicious and extremely strong pina colada at a Mariners game recently.
Oh,
and
nice.
I had never seen anything like that in a stadium before. It was a hot day. We were sitting directly in the sun. And that made my Mariners game a little more fun.
Brain freeze drinks are the best, as long as you don't get brain freeze though. It's a slushie, and it's like it numbs your palate. So it doesn't matter if it's too sweet or too bitter. It's just something that's just a thirst quencher.
Okay. Trend of the summer, I think you're calling it. Batch-made slushies. Alcoholic batch-made slushies.
Claire, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Tom. That was fun.
That's it for today. We have a list of all the rest of what we talked about in the description of this episode. Thanks for listening to Seattle Eats. The show is a production of Seattle Times and KUOW, part of the NPR network. You can support Seattle Eats by investing in the local newsroom and the specialized beats that make this storytelling possible. Please consider joining and subscribing at KUOW.org/eats and SeattleTimes.com. Seattle Eats is produced by Clare McGrane and edited by Jim Gates and Trevor Lensmeyer. I'm Tom Ben. See you next week.